Super exciting that we're here today, and I think we got a lot to say. What do you think?
I always have a lot to say.
Shoot. So today, what do you want to talk about?
What I want to talk about is really, I'm curious. I'm curious because I've known you for 10 years now. I don't know, now 10? Is it longer
It's
than that?
actually been 11.
Okay, 11.
Yeah.
And, recently we've had some people pass, and, you know, I was at a funeral, a virtual funeral the other day, and literally this woman who's very impactful to our life, and we'll talk about that later, but
Yeah.
her daughter, people online, as they heard her story, because she left a big legacy, um, they didn't know who she was, who she really, really was.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad, actually, and I thought to myself, with the recent losses, too, do you really know people? You know?
Yeah.
Can you say that? We know, we love people, but do we know them?
I don't think you ever really get to know a person. And I mean, I even think about the people that I lost. I'm wondering how much about them did I really not know. And, it's an area that sometimes I struggle because people tend to stay on the surface. I don't even think people really want to know you, the real you. It might actually scare them. What do you think?
I actually think people are craving to have that kind of connection with people, but it is very vulnerable. It's because it's two-sided. Either the person has walls up and they don't want you to know who they really are. Maybe there's shame, maybe there's some kind of stigma, whatever. And on the other end of the spectrum, do you want to actually let people in, right? So I think, I don't know, like that's the question, and I'm wondering if we can continue to explore that. So for instance, when I think about you, and again, we've been traveled a million miles and we've spent many hours together. You're probably the person I've spent the most time with outside of my husband in the last 10 years, honestly.
Yeah.
And I was saying to myself, I know you're from Dallas, but like, where were you born?
Well, I mean, I can't tell you the hospital I was born in. You know what's crazy?
You can't?
I think I block out some stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was born in Dallas, and I don't think we had a lot. My family was modest. However, I had an aspect of my family that was not. I come from a very musical, talented, crazy family. My dad was a musician. My grandfather was a very famous in Dallas jazz musician. And funny enough, he worked for Jack Ruby. I don't know if you know.
Yes, I do.
Jack Ruby owned a club in Dallas.
That's crazy.
And my grandfather actually was interviewed by some reporters about the whole thing. So, I mean, it's very interesting. I have some video to show to prove it. But anyway,
that is an interesting connection, and we need to explore that, honestly. That just like, woo! Because I have a fascination with Kennedy anyway. All the Kennedys, by the way.
My grandfather worked for this guy that owned the club that actually was involved in some of this crazy. So I mean, I have a very interesting. So my grandmother was a church missionary, but my grandfather was a musician. Isn't that like an interesting?
Yeah, I like it.
So opposites attract, right? And so, but he's very fancy. My grandmother, my grandfather always dressed to the nines. He was tuxedos and gold jewelry, and he's just very fly.
So you're after him.
After both of them, because my grandmother was like fancy. So anyway, my mom didn't take after that. So my mom was very reserved, very, I would say, very poised, quiet, and understated. She didn't dress fancy. I wish that she would took a little bit more from my grandma, but I played dress up all my whole life, so I got it naturally.
Let's take a moment here and just, because you talked a lot about your grandma, and I don't know you loved her, and your grandpa and your mom, who you adored, and I don't know much about her.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of get in the space of you're this little kid. I don't know. Yeah. 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Who was Christi when she was 6?
Well, you know what? I was a dreamer. I always stuck out. For whatever reason, people looked at me like I was an alien. I always felt this, like I didn't fit.
So, okay, seriously, we've never had this conversation. That is what I tell people, too, that I'm close to. I felt like they were going to come and get me. Like, I was like, I'm not really supposed to be a part of this family, so somebody's going to come, and they're going to, and I used to think, like, they will come and get me, the aliens or whatever, and I'm, like, going to go back to my real pod. Seriously, this is, like, literally since I was a little kid.
Oh, my gosh.
So funny.
But you know what's interesting is I remember, and I grew up super religious, and I loved the church. I mean, I still love the church, but I grew up very aware of afterlife, and I grew up understanding at least what they taught us about, you know, Jesus coming back and all this stuff. And so I lived kind of in this space of innately aware that there's a spiritual world, and then still wanting to have dreams as just a regular person. So I would literally, I remember when the Halley Comet was coming. I remember when, you know, different things would happen in the world, and I was so freaked out. I used to cry at night when I was little. But then
what part would freak you out? Why?
Freaked me out because I used to be like, I didn't want God to forget me. I always wanted him to, like,
you're like, it's a rapture.
It's a rapture, because I was all I could remember. And so, but I was so innately aware because I grew up very, very, like I said, in a religious household. My mom made us get up, and we had to pray all the time. We had to read the Bible. We were at church every Monday, Sunday, Tuesday. And I love that part of life. But then I also didn't feel like I bought all of it. I never could fully buy it, because it was like I couldn't wear pants. I'm just like, what? Couldn't wear lipstick. There were so many can'ts that when I finally, you know, when I was a little kid, I was having these dreams of being a fashion designer. And that's
since you were little.
Since I was little.
Like around what age?
I knew it when I was in kindergarten. Like, I knew I loved it when I was in kindergarten. So there was this little Asian girl, and I remember her so specifically. She was a talented artist, and she would draw these elaborate pictures. And I remember this one picture she drew. It was a little girl, and she had a thought bubble, and in the thought bubble, the little girl was doing a twirl, ice skating. It was, I mean, but it was phenomenal. Yeah. And she could draw like that. So I asked her to teach me how to draw like that. So I learned how to start drawing in kindergarten because of this little girl. Yeah. And I was good. And then I started looking at fashion magazines, and I would draw what I saw. Yeah. If there was a picture of a model, I would draw that model. And so throughout my childhood, I dreamed through magazines, through Vogue and all these different things. And so I used to sketch, and my whole wall in my bedroom was full of fashion sketches. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm on my knees praying to Jesus, but I'm also like. So you think
there's a dichotomy for some reason? That's how you feel, like, oh, I have this fashion sense, but I also am praying to Jesus and not sure if the two.
It was because I couldn't fully express through any of the other parts of my life who I really felt like on the inside. So my dad, at the time, my mom and dad were still together when I was younger. My dad left when I was about 12, but. You know, I used to cry to him because he was the club smoking and, you know, drinking guy, smoking cigarettes and stuff. I hated that. But then I was just like, Daddy, how come I can't wear pants? And he'd be like, man, let the girl wear pants. Oh, my gosh. You know, and so my mom would be like, no. And so she held fast to her belief. Yeah. And so, but I never fully felt it. Right. So I said, when I turned, fast forward, you know, I had a baby young. And when I was 15, I got pregnant, and I had to start working and all that. So I said, you know what? When I make my own money, I'm going to buy what I want to buy. So that was my one act of defiance. Was when I was old enough, as a grown woman now, at 16, 17, and I bought pants.
It's like 10 years of, like, thinking to yourself, I want to wear pants. That's a long time, by the way.
I waited. Yeah. I waited. Now, I snuck. My mom never knew this, but so everybody left for school because I was the one in the younger grades. So I had two older brothers, and so when they would go to school, my mom would be gone, they'd be gone. I'd go and sneak in my brother's closet, and I would find some pants that I could wear. And fortunately, me and my brother were about the same size, so I snuck. I cheated, but you know what though? I wanted to express myself, so I went to school and I had on pants. Boy, I snuck. When I would get home, I would run on the side of the house. I would change, and then I would fold those suckers and put them back in the drawer.
So what strikes me about this story, and the whole story, is a couple things. Number one, like the feeling that you had that you couldn't be who you really were, like, and you didn't want to disappoint your mom, you know, but you were bold enough, or rebellious enough, I guess, to be able to say, I'm going to wear pants. That was like the thing you wanted to do. And then how did that wearing pants make you feel?
I mean, I felt normal. I felt like a regular person. I felt like, how is pants going to send me to hell? Like, it just didn't make any sense. And it's just like, this stuff doesn't make sense.
Fast forward to today, because, I mean, literally, when you think about it, it's not that long ago that, you know, a lot of people weren't wearing pants when we were growing up.
Right.
I mean, I'm older than you, but I remember the only reason I got to wear pants is because I got my brother's hand. We were poor. And they were not going to buy me. I wore my older brother's clothes.
Yeah.
That's all the clothes I wore. No other clothes.
Tomboy all the way.
No choice. They were like, John grew out of his Wranglers. These are yours. Like, okay, wear the football t-shirt. All right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But yeah. So it's interesting though. And I don't think I don't know, because I don't go to church all the time, but like, I don't know if people care about those types of things anymore. I'm not sure.
I think there are some groups that still do believe and hold fast to that. And those are the regimented. But the thing was that I never understood why freedom had to feel like restriction.
Well, especially like, this is a shell, right? We're not taking this with us.
Right.
As far as I understand, it's our soul.
Now there's things that I still, even to this day, carry. And that a lot of my esteem and things are still tied up in those old thoughts. And it's very interesting because, I mean, as you know, so after I had those dreams as a fashion designer, I didn't exercise any of those gifts until much later. I did take a couple years in high school to take fashion design. Some people took nursing. Some people took auto mechanic. I took fashion, for 2 years. But I didn't go to fashion school, so I mean, I didn't do anything with it for years.
But you're talented innately, so I almost think you didn't have to go to school. I mean, she's a designer. Like, literally, you are a designer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
And I feel like I always was.
Right.
But it took me years to come into this thing. And so where people think that it's just oh wow, you're so this, and it's like, no, I lay up. So when I tell you at night, these stuff just comes to me, and it's very interesting because I look around at other people and I'm like, I still have that alienness because it's weird. I am thinking about things I don't think other people are thinking, at least where I come from.
Well, what I understand though, I do a lot of reading and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but people that have gifts, right, or they exercise their gifts, or they've heard these voices or dreamt these dreams since they were little. It's just who they are, and you either choose to use them or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the voice is always there, telling you, like, or comforting you, because you feel your best, as I understand it, your most self when you are designing.
When I'm creating. Designing is one aspect. And listen, I'm very aware that God gave me these gifts because
I can't sew a button on.
Until, I mean, listen.
It's not my gift.
It's interesting, though, because things come naturally. And people always like, well, how do you know how to do this? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. So if I don't know, I know it's not me, right?
Yeah,
because I didn't just come up with this thing. So it's not just about fashion. It's not just, it's about color. It's about creativity. It's about ideas. It's about vision. So I can see those things. And the problem is that I was surrounded most of my life beautiful people, but no dreamers. And that can be, I mean, even in our day to day. I mean, we've worked together now for 11, almost 12 years, and there's just people that don't think like us. So when you say, who am I?
I would say a large majority of people are not dreamers or visionaries for whatever reason. So I think I want to kind of explore that later. But, so I just want to stop there and let you know my 6-year-old story, because it's very much like yours. Except for I'm not a designer. I'm dreaming of being on stage, right? I'm acting. I'm acting in my bedroom. And as a matter of fact, again, we lived in a pretty bad neighborhood. And for some reason, I was very independent, and my parents let me I don't know why, walk to the park, Brantford Park. It's probably about 5 blocks away from us, because they had a theater thing, whatever, and they were like, okay, and I would try out. And I actually got The Wizard of Oz, and I got Dorothy. And then, and I was so happy, and I'm just like by myself. When I think to myself, I walked there by myself, I auditioned myself, I made it happen, and I was really happy about that. And then I'll never forget this young, beautiful black girl walked in, and she's like, I want to try out for Dorothy. And they're like, oh, we already gave the part. And I'm like, let her try it out. Like, I don't know. I was always like, let's all do it together. And she sang the song, and she sang so beautifully. Like, I cried. I was like, she's Dorothy. I'm the Scarecrow. We're all good. It's going to be a great show.
Oh, you gave your part away.
I didn't give her my part away. She earned it.
She earned. Oh,
but the point I'm trying to make is, like, and I've always been directing. And then I'm like, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. And I think, to your point, the other part of me was, I wanted to be a nun. I was like, I know. So like you're saying, you're on your knees praying, right? And you're creating.
Yeah.
I literally, when I was younger, and a lot less now, unfortunately, but I felt God all the time. And I felt like He was talking to me. And I felt very comfortable. And I talked to Him all the time. And I didn't really know, because we were Catholic and we didn't always go to church. I didn't really understand what it was. No one explained it to me. I just was like, this is normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'd get messages. And so I would and I felt very confident because of that.
Yeah.
I was never scared in those early years. I was like just independent, doing my thing, guided by a voice and what was here.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's that story. Like 6th grade, same thing, just going, okay, whatever my surroundings are, and whatever, my dad's an alcoholic, my mom's high on pills, and she's got bipolar and all this stuff, and they were kind of not paying attention to me. No problem. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to figure it out.
So that's interesting, because what made you, this whole, I'm going to get out of here. I'm in an alien family. Where did you get that fortitude to actually make it happen? Like, when did you leave your home and all that stuff?
I left. So I think a couple things happened. And I didn't have grandparents, so that's a big.
Oh, you didn't?
I never knew them. They're all passed away by then. Oh. So to grow up without grandparents is strange, I believe, because I'm a grandparent now, and maybe that spoke to the independence that I had. I don't know, but I loved people. I made friends wherever I went. So my next door neighbor, I was telling the story to my husband the other day, Dottie and Mel, and my mom didn't teach us how to. She never went outside really. So I wanted to roller skate. I wanted to ride the bike. And Dottie was like, I'll teach you. She was like the best. And she was super sunshine.
Yeah.
And always went bowling and just the most amazing human. I'm like, I want to be Dottie when I grow up. She's awesome. And so she emulated for me what I wanted to achieve as far as a person is concerned. That was my first person. And then we had neighbors, my friend Stacy Krug, my very first friend, around the corner. And their family basically just took me in. So I would just hop over the fence and go to Stacy's. I pretty much every Christmas, we didn't really have Christmas growing up. My parents didn't do it. So I would go there, and I ended up just kind of living with them. So it helped me. And her dad was really well off. They actually ended up moving to a better place, and they let me go there too. So in the summers, I would just stay at their house, and they had a pool, and I was like, this is how you can be, not poor, my parents didn't have stuff on the walls. We never had drapes. It was weird, dirty. And so I'm like, then I see this other side, and I'm like, okay,
this is life.
Yeah, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. And it's so I think because I kept building these relationships and I kept trying to get out in my way into the world and figure out, and they were very kind, a lot of kindness. And I wanted to explore that too and see for me, people would just show up. Or, you know what I mean? Somebody would help me. Mm-hmm. And it was, I don't know, I think it was divine intervention.
Interesting that you had these people, because I didn't. Mm. And so there was a lot of feeling around in the dark for me. And there was no, savior type of person to show up. I had a really, I would call it a good childhood. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. After my dad left, it was just me and my mom. And shortly after he left, I got pregnant. So it was we went into survival mode. Mm-hmm. So I spent those years with my mom and my brothers, in survival mode. She did everything she could for me. And she was an amazing mom. Of course, still teenage, rebellion and whatever. But I always wanted to be a good daughter to her. That was my thing. And I felt like I let her down having a baby and getting pregnant, but there's a couple things that she taught me. And she was the father wasn't in my daughter's life. He disappeared, And she was like, this baby is never going to want for anything, and we're going to make it happen no matter what. And that's what she taught me from a kid. And then the other thing she taught me is always keep your own money. Don't let anybody try to take care of you. And she's like, keep a good car because you don't need to be breaking down on the side of the road. So those are like the things that she taught me. And always keep God. Obviously, that was like the number one because that was the foundation. But I watched how hard she worked, and I watched how committed she was to God and how she didn't compromise in any way her faith. And eventually my mom passed away, you know, of
Did she ever find love again?
She did not.
Okay.
And she chose, but I was like, she would always be like, I was like, when are you going to get you a man? She's like, I'm not going to go out here and find me a joker. She called men jokers. And sometimes the men would, you know, try to I'm
sure she was beautiful.
She was beautiful. She was a beautiful soul. But like I said, she was not out there. She didn't date. She didn't chit chat. I never saw her have a conversation with a man. And so I was all into men. And I'm just like, she'd be like, where did you find this joker? Like she would always, because I could get, I don't know, man. For some reason, men just pick me up everywhere. So that was always my weakness. And and I love me some men. So I told my mom, I'm not going to be single. I need a man. And I would tell her that point blank. She never judged me for it, but here you go, you know. So
you didn't really have anyone show up, but you had your mom.
I had my mom, and I did have, now I mean, like there was nobody to save me. I was always the stronger of any of my relationships. People showed up at divine timing, but it was not to swoop in and be this thing for me. I always was God made me to be the thing. And it's like, if you're looking for the thing, you are the thing. That's my story. It was never somebody to come and try and make my life better. Actually, and I've been married 4 times, and a lot of people don't know that. It is what it is. I'm a forever lover. I can't say I'm not, but but when I would you know, my husbands and things, they did great things, great people. But I was always the stronger spiritually, stronger financially, stronger with motivation, and I could bring people up. But I was always trying to save people, and I now realize that is something that is a thing that I have tried to, and I know we've talked about it. You've got this.
I have the same thing.
It is weird, but it is who I've always been.
Yeah, me too. So when I go back to my stories, it's not that happy as it sounded in the beginning. So great, I had Dottie, she's awesome, and then I had this family, and I found out later because I was like, why in my mind, why would they want me around? Like I'm this Mexican chubby kid.
I love you.
Well. And I used to wonder because the mom and dad, they never really hugged or anything, you know, and they always left the door open. And my parents always had the door closed, and they were always kissing and stuff. So I'm like, so I'm like, and they were just like, sure, hang out, whatever. There was 2 sisters, and, you know, it was great, but it was also interesting, right? And the dad used to go and do some woodwork, and he was kind of a surfer. And then the mom would just shoot. They were all gorgeous, but but I couldn't put my finger on it when I was a kid because they always wanted me around. And I was like,
yeah.
So later, to come to find out, the mom basically wanted me around because she didn't really love the dad and she didn't really want to be with the dad. So I was like that buffer. Oh well, Christina's here, so whatever.
So there